It's been described as feudal. It's the system of leasehold in England and Wales, which traps at least 4 million homeowners into contracts, sometimes facing spiralling charges. We've reported several times how people have found it impossible to sell their homes as the costs rise. So now the Law Commission has issued a report recommending changes aimed at freeing people from these punitive contracts. In a moment, we'll speak to one of the authors of that report. But first, Claire Scott from Greater Manchester told us last year how she couldn't sell her house because of a clause in the lease.
This one fell through due to advice from solicitors to our buyers that they shouldn't buy it at all because of this lease clause that we didn't know even existed on it, which was that the ground rent of £295 a year doubles every 10 years until it reaches nearly £10,000 by 2060 a year. We got all our paperwork out and lo and behold it does state that clause, but at no point was it raised to us by our solicitors.
And it's not just ground rents. The cost of buying the freehold has soared in some cases. Katie Kendrick from Ellesmere Port in Cheshire saw the price of her freehold increase from £3,500 to more than £13,000 because the house builder had sold it on. And she also discovered it meant other costs had gone up too.
I received a letter to say that my freehold had been sold on, and I was not aware of what the implication of that actually was until a neighbour alarmed me to the fact that the permission fees upon the onward sale of the freehold had in fact gone up. Permission to put a small conservatory onto the property went from £300 up to £2,600.
Well, listening to that is Professor Nick Hopkins from the Law Commission, and he's one of the authors of the report. Nicholas Hopkins, you've described this system as feudal, suggesting it's kind of medieval. What did your 2-year investigation learn?
We learn of experiences very similar to those of Claire and Katie in your clips there. What we heard from leaseholders is that being a leaseholder just doesn't give them the experience and benefits of owning a home that they expect to have. And we heard a strong desire by them to be able to own the freehold of their home. We also heard of a very wide range of problems within leasehold that need to be fixed, problems that mean that leaseholders don't feel that they have control of their home and feel very angry at the fact that their home is being used to provide an income stream for third parties.
So on the basis of that, what are you recommending?
We've made a number of recommendations for reform, which are aimed at achieving two things. We think that if freehold ownership is possible, then it is preferred. So we've made recommendations to enable more people to own the freehold of their property. But we've also made recommendations to fix the difficulties that leaseholders are experiencing at the moment so that they have the control of their home that they want and so that the financial value of the home is placed in leaseholders' hands.
So does that mean for people like Claire who can't sell her house because of that clause in the lease, you would now change that clause and just pull it out completely and allow her to sell?
Well, in a separate report we published in January this year, we are asked by government to provide it with options to reduce the sum of money that people have to pay when they buy their freehold or extend their lease through enfranchisement. And one of the options we put forward to government is that it could cap the amount of ground rent that's taken into account when the price for buying the freehold or extending the lease is calculated. Because
there was a report by the Common Select Committee for Housing saying that actually that system of increasing ground rent is just seen as a profit. It doesn't actually benefit anybody except those who've bought on the freehold. So would you just ban that? I mean, why not just ban leaseholding altogether, as they have in Scotland and Northern Ireland?
Well, the work that we're doing is part of a much wider sort of package of reform with government looking at different aspects of the leasehold system as well. So our work has been focused on what happens when people exercise rights to enfranchise, which is when a leaseholder extends their lease or buys their freehold, and how leaseholders can take control of the management of their block through a scheme called the Right to Manage, and has looked at enabling more people to own their freehold through the common hold scheme. Now, alongside the work that we've been doing, government has announced an intention to ban ground rents above a zero level in future leases. So there's been a lot going on in leasehold reform, and our work is part of that package.
Well, you mentioned common hold there. That suggests that the people who live in the properties would be able to own and manage the freeholds of those properties. And if it's a block of flats, that starts to become interesting. The Home Builders Federation has told us that common hold would mean flat owners would need to take on a greater responsibility for their buildings, and that includes things like health and safety, environmental things. So do you think ordinary homeowners would want to take this on, even if they could?
Common hold allows individuals to own the freehold of their flat by putting in place a system for managing the block. It's a scheme that is used around the world for flat ownership. So if you own a flat in common hold, you own the freehold of your flat, and you're a member of the company that owns and manages the common parts. So what you find is that the owners of the flats are the same as those who decide how that building is managed. Now, in most cases, what that will mean is that the flat owners will decide which professional managing agents to appoint in order to run the building for them. But essentially what it does is move away from the them and us foundation of leasehold to us and ourselves. So it's putting that control in the flat owner's hands.
Now, you say there's a lot happening at the moment, but when is all of this going to impact on people like Claire and Katie so that they can just get on with their lives living in their homes?
Well, these are problems that are not going to go away. They're problems that need comprehensive reform. We've made our recommendations for reform for government. We hope that government will accept those recommendations and we can then help provide the legislation that's needed to implement them.
Professor Nick Hopkins from the Law Commission, thank you.
Thank you.